The CNN studio lights blazed hot as American actor Jonathan Roumie sat across from Fox News personality Jeanine Pirro, both locked in what was supposed to be a civilized political debate about immigration policy and border security. The temperature in the studio seemed to rise with each passing minute as the two sparred over legislation, statistics, and voter concerns. But what happened in the next 30 seconds would shatter every rule of political discourse and leave millions of viewers absolutely stunned. Pirro, the former prosecutor turned TV host and staunch supporter of Donald Trump, had been steadily losing ground in the debate. For the past 20 minutes, she had thrown her usual arsenal of talking points at Roumie, claims about border chaos, accusations of Democratic weakness, and attacks on Biden administration policies. But none of it was sticking. Her carefully rehearsed sound bites that usually dominated social media weren't landing with the studio audience, and Roumie's sharp policy knowledge and command of actual legislative details was making Pirro look increasingly unprepared and desperate. The frustration was written all over Pirro's face. Her usual confident smirk had faded as Roumie systematically dismantled her arguments with actual facts, budget numbers, and real-world policy outcomes. Pirro's media training had prepared her for friendly interviews and supportive crowds, but she was clearly struggling against an opponent who had done his homework and came armed with receipts. That's when Pirro made a decision that would haunt her political career forever. "You know what, Jonathan?" Pirro said, her voice dripping with condescension as she leaned forward with a cruel smile. "Maybe if you spent less time on your appearance and more time actually reading the bills you vote on, the American people might be better represented." Even the camera operator stopped moving, their professional instincts telling them they were witnessing something unprecedented. The makeup artists in the green room paused their work on other guests, drawn to the monitors by the sudden tension crackling through the air. What Pirro had just done was cross a line that no serious politician crosses on national television. She had just insulted a well-prepared actor's appearance on live TV, apparently thinking her media experience and Trump endorsement would protect her from any serious consequences. In that moment of stunned silence, seasoned political observers in the studio audience exchanged knowing glances. They had seen countless political debates, heated exchanges, and even personal attacks. But this felt different. This wasn't just political theater or strategic positioning. This was a fundamental miscalculation that could end careers and reshape narratives. Some veteran journalists in the press section were already reaching for their phones, sensing they were about to witness either a complete political meltdown or the birth of a legendary comeback moment. But Jonathan Roumie wasn't about to let this slide. What he said next would not only destroy Pirro's reputation, but also create one of the most viral political moments of the year, the kind that gets studied in political science classes and communication seminars for decades to come. Before we dive into how Roumie systematically dismantled Pirro piece by piece, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because this showdown is about to get incredibly intense and you won't want to miss a single devastating detail. The countdown had begun and Jeanine Pirro had absolutely no idea she was about to face the political fight of her life against someone who had spent years preparing for exactly this kind of moment. To understand why this confrontation was so explosive, you need to know exactly who these two are and what brought them to this moment. Jonathan Roumie is a brilliant actor, best known for his role in The Chosen. He has used his platform to address societal issues, and with his background, he has developed a deep understanding of the political landscape. What many people don't realize is that Roumie's communication style was honed not just in acting, but in the many behind-the-scenes social justice initiatives he supported. His advocacy for marginalized communities and his dedication to making his voice heard in crucial political debates prepared him for moments like this. Roumie didn't come from political royalty or family wealth. He grew up in a middle-class family and worked his way up, learning the value of hard work and preparation along the way. His career has always been about advocating for those who often have no voice. What sets him apart is his ability to speak with depth and authenticity, which made him a force to be reckoned with in any political debate. In this debate, Roumie had already demonstrated his ability to break down complex issues and speak to people in a way that resonates beyond just political jargon. His reputation for calm and clear-headed responses had made him an authority on topics that matter most to ordinary people. And that calmness was about to be tested. Jeanine Pirro, on the other hand, a former prosecutor turned Fox News host, is known for her outspoken conservative views and combative style. She's no stranger to heated debates, but in this instance, she was clearly overmatched. Roumie's preparation and the controlled manner in which he tackled each issue left Pirro scrambling, unable to find solid footing in the conversation. Jonathan Roumie, an actor and advocate for social justice, sat across from Jeanine Pirro in what was supposed to be a civil debate about immigration policy and border security. The lights blazed hot in the CNN studio, and as the debate wore on, the tension in the room rose. For the past 20 minutes, Pirro had thrown her usual talking points at Roumie: claims about border chaos, accusations of democratic weakness, and attacks on the Biden administration. However, none of it was sticking. Roumie's calm, methodical approach, backed by his knowledge of policy and legal details, made Pirro's arguments look increasingly unprepared and desperate. Pirro, confident from years of media training, began to lose ground. Her usual smirk faded as Roumie systematically dismantled her arguments, sticking to the facts and making her sound increasingly out of touch. Pirro had been trained for the kind of friendly, supportive interviews that allowed her to control the narrative. But in the face of an opponent who understood the complexities of policy and could articulate them with clarity, her media experience was no match for Roumie's intellectual rigor. That's when Pirro made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her career. "You know what, Jonathan?" she said, leaning forward with a cruel smile, her voice dripping with condescension. "Maybe if you spent less time on your appearance and more time actually reading the bills you talk about, the American people might be better served." The moment she made the personal attack, the studio fell silent. The camera operators froze, their instincts signaling that something unprecedented was unfolding. Pirro, in her attempt to belittle Roumie, had crossed a line that no serious politician should cross on live television. It wasn't just a critique of his politics, it was an insult to his character. She had just targeted his appearance, thinking her media experience would shield her from the consequences. But Jonathan Roumie wasn't about to let this slide. What happened next would not only destroy Pirro's reputation, but also create one of the most viral moments of the year. Moments that would be analyzed in political science courses for years to come. Before we dive into how Roumie broke down Pirro's arguments, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment on where you're watching from. This debate is about to get incredibly intense. To understand the significance of this moment, it's essential to know the background of both individuals. Jonathan Roumie is a man of faith and action, known for his role in The Chosen, but also as an advocate for social change. Through his career, Roumie has used his platform to speak out against injustice, often championing causes that reflect his deep understanding of human dignity. His approach to politics and social issues is not just about talking points. It's about delivering well-researched, thoughtful arguments that hold weight. His calm demeanor, honed in front of cameras and on stage, is matched by an unyielding commitment to using his platform for good. On the other hand, Jeanine Pirro, a former prosecutor turned conservative television host, built her career on delivering fiery rhetoric and stirring up her base with inflammatory comments. Her media background gave her a huge advantage in public appearances, but she had underestimated the intellectual prowess of someone like Roumie. While Pirro knew how to command a camera and deliver a punchy soundbite, Roumie's preparation, clarity, and controlled demeanor had already thrown her off balance. As the debate intensified, the discussion moved beyond policy. Pirro's attack on Roumie's appearance was not only a personal jab, but a move that played into the stereotypes that many public figures, especially men in media, can escape. Roumie had made it clear that he wouldn't be intimidated by personal jabs. This was a battle of ideas and preparation, not appearances. The moment Pirro made her attack, the entire room shifted. Roumie's eyes narrowed slightly, but his face remained unreadable. His years of experience handling heated situations had prepared him for this. Pirro, on the other hand, leaned back, confident that she had landed a blow that would throw Roumie off balance. But instead of flustered anger, Roumie delivered a controlled intellectual takedown. "I want to make sure I understand what you're saying, Jeanine," Roumie began, his voice calm yet commanding. "Are you suggesting that my appearance somehow affects my ability to advocate for the policies that matter most to the American people?" Pirro, likely surprised by the shift in tone, tried to double down. "Look, I'm just saying that Congress is too focused on appearances and not on real work. You can't deny that." Roumie took a deep breath and responded with a measured but pointed reply. "Perhaps it's easy to focus on superficial things when you don't have to engage in the real work of representing the people. I'm here to discuss policies that affect millions of lives. And if my appearance bothers you, maybe the problem lies with your inability to engage with the real substance of the debate. By turning the attack back on Pirro, Roumie exposed the weaknesses in her approach. Instead of responding to the substance of the issues, Pirro had resorted to personal attacks, something that would ultimately cost her the debate. Roumie, unshaken, reminded everyone in the room why intellectual preparation, not inflammatory rhetoric, should be the focus of political debates. The studio erupted in applause as Roumie's words resonated with those who valued substance over style. The moderator, Anderson Cooper, struggled to regain control, sensing that this moment had shifted the narrative completely. From this moment on, Roumie had not only defended his integrity, but also turned the debate into a masterclass of preparation, intellectual power, and dignity. Jeanine Pirro, on the other hand, had exposed her weakness, her inability to engage in a substantive, fact-based debate. This moment would go viral, not just because of the takedown, but because it embodied the triumph of intellectual rigor over shallow rhetoric. The audience in the studio, a carefully selected mix of political insiders, journalists, and activists, began to murmur. Even in the highly polarized world of modern politics, Jeanine Pirro's comments felt like they had crossed a significant line. Several people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Jonathan Roumie finally spoke, his voice calm and measured in a way that immediately commanded attention. "Jeanine, I want to make sure I understand what you just said," Roumie said, leaning forward slightly. "Are you suggesting that my appearance somehow affects my ability to represent the people of this country?" Pirro's smirk widened. She thought she was winning. "I'm just saying that maybe if elected officials spent more time reading legislation and less time on other things, the American people would be better served." "Other things?" Roumie repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. "Could you be more specific about what other things you're referring to?" This was a classic move, forcing Pirro to explicitly state what she was implying, making her own words weigh heavily. Pirro, despite her media experience, walked right into the trap. "Look, I think it's pretty obvious," Pirro waved dismissively. "When you spend that much time and money on your appearance, on your hair, your makeup, your clothes, it raises questions about priorities." The studio audience audibly gasped. Pirro had just explicitly attacked Roumie's appearance on national television, and when given a chance to back away, she doubled down. But she still didn't seem to grasp how badly she had miscalculated. Roumie nodded slowly, as if processing this information for the first time. "So you believe that my hair, my makeup, and my clothes indicate that I'm not focused on my legislative responsibility?" "I'm just saying what a lot of people are thinking," Pirro replied, apparently believing she had the support of the audience. That's when Roumie's expression finally changed. His poker face disappeared, replaced by the kind of cold fury that had made him legendary in acting circles. But when he spoke, his voice remained perfectly controlled. "Jeanine, I want to thank you for making something very clear to everyone watching tonight," Roumie said, his words measured and precise. "You've just demonstrated exactly the kind of disrespect that people face every single day in professional settings." Pirro's smirk began to fade as she realized the conversation had taken a turn she hadn't anticipated. Roumie continued, "You've decided that because I take care of my appearance, I must be less serious about my job. You've reduced my years as an actor, my dedication to social justice, and my work in advocating for human rights to the way I look." "Now wait a minute," Pirro tried to interrupt, but Roumie wasn't finished. "No, Jeanine, you wait a minute," Roumie said, his voice rising slightly but still maintaining complete control. "You want to talk about priorities? Let's talk about priorities." The entire studio was dead silent. Even the cameramen had stopped moving, sensing that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Roumie leaned forward, his gaze locked on Pirro. "My priority is using my platform to advocate for social change and to give a voice to the voiceless," Roumie said, his voice strong. "My priority is being a role model for young people who look up to me. My priority is using my work to fight for a better future for every American." Pirro tried to respond, but Roumie held up a hand. "I'm not done," he said firmly. "You want to know about my appearance?" Roumie continued. "This hair that you seem so concerned about, these are my natural curls, which I've spent years learning to embrace, despite people like you telling me they weren't professional enough. This makeup, I wear it because I learned that if I don't, people will ask if I'm tired or sick, and then my appearance becomes the story instead of my work." The camera captured Pirro's face as Roumie spoke, and viewers could see her realizing she had made a serious mistake. The confident smirk was completely gone. replaced by the look of someone who knew they were in serious trouble. But Roumie wasn't done yet. "What about these clothes that concern you so much?" Roumie said, gesturing to a sharp navy suit. "I buy them because I learned that if I dress casually, people question my professionalism. If I dress too formally, people say I'm trying too hard. If I dress fashionably, people like you say I'm focused on the wrong things." The audience was completely captivated. This wasn't just a political response. It was a masterclass in how systemic racism and sexism work in professional settings. "So let me ask you something, Jeanine," Roumie continued, his voice taking on the tone he used when delivering powerful, thought-provoking lines on stage. "Have you ever criticized a male colleague for being well-dressed? Have you ever suggested that a man's appearance indicates he's not serious about his job?" Pirro opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She knew that any answer would make her look worse. "I didn't think so," Roumie said. "And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what we call a double standard." The studio erupted in applause, but Roumie wasn't finished delivering his devastating response. The real knockout punch was still coming, and when it landed, it would leave Pirro completely speechless. Roumie stood up from his chair, a move that immediately commanded even more attention. In the world of television debates, standing up is a power move that signals you're about to deliver something important. The camera operators instinctively adjusted their shots to capture his full presence. "Since you want to talk about appearances and priorities," Roumie's voice carried the full authority of someone who had commanded respect both in front of cameras and in public spaces for years. "Let me remind you that I've spent my career advocating for policies that help millions of people. You spent your time promoting divisive rhetoric, and now you're questioning my priorities." Pirro's face went pale. She suddenly realized that her media training hadn't prepared her for this, a moment where intellectual precision, preparation, and real-world experience could dismantle her in real time. Jonathan Roumie reached into his folder and pulled out a tablet. "This is interesting," he said, scrolling through what appeared to be social media posts from the past 6 months. The entire studio leaned forward. Even Anderson Cooper, who had covered countless political moments, seemed to sense that he was witnessing something unprecedented. "In the last 6 months alone," Roumie continued, "you've posted 47 photos of yourself on Instagram, 47 professional headshots, glamour shots, photos of your outfits, photos of your hair and makeup team. You've literally posted more photos of your appearance than I have in my entire career advocating for change." Pirro tried to interrupt. "That's completely different, is it?" Roumie cut her off. "When I looked at your campaign expenses from your gubernatorial run, I found something really interesting. You spent $89,000 on hair, makeup, and wardrobe. $89,000, Jeanine." The studio audience audibly gasped. The number was staggering, especially coming from someone who had just criticized another person for caring about their appearance. "For context," Roumie continued, "that's more than the median household income in Arizona. That's more than what many teachers make in a year. That's more than I've spent on my appearance in my entire career advocating for social justice." Pirro was now visibly squirming in her seat, her face flushed red. She had walked into a trap that she had set for herself, and Roumie was systematically dismantling her piece by piece. But he wasn't done. "Here's what's really interesting," Roumie said, his voice taking on the tone of someone about to reveal the most damning evidence in a trial. "I also looked at your voting record when you were involved in Arizona politics. Do you want to know what I found?" Pirro shook her head slightly, as if she could somehow stop what was coming. "You voted against funding for education 3 different times. You opposed healthcare expansion that would have helped thousands of people. You supported tax cuts that primarily benefited wealthy developers, while arguing there wasn't enough money for infrastructure repairs." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. "So let me get this straight," Roumie continued, pacing slightly as he built to his crescendo. "You spent $89,000 on your appearance while arguing there wasn't enough money to fund schools. You posted 47 photos of yourself on social media while criticizing me for caring about my appearance. You voted against healthcare for hundreds of thousands of people while dropping nearly 6 figures on hair and makeup." Pirro tried desperately to respond. "Those issues are completely separate." "Are they?" Roumie fired back immediately. "Because it seems to me like you've made a career out of looking good while voting against policies that would actually help people look good. Policies that would help them afford healthcare, education, and basic necessities." The devastating logic of Roumie's argument was undeniable. He had taken Pirro's attack and flipped it completely, using her own actions and priorities against her. And here's the real kicker, Roumie said, moving in for the final blow. While you were spending $89,000 to look good on camera, I was working with a bipartisan group of lawmakers to secure $2.3 billion in federal funding for infrastructure projects. While you were posting glamour shots on Instagram, I was authoring legislation to expand healthcare access for 50,000 people. He paused, letting the contrast sink in. So when you ask me about priorities, Roumie said, his voice carrying an unmistakable authority, here's what I want to know. What exactly have you accomplished for the people you claim to represent? What bills have you written? What problems have you solved? What communities have you helped? Pirro opened her mouth, but no words came out. She had been completely outmaneuvered, and everyone in the studio could see it. Because from where I'm sitting, Roumie continued, it looks like the only person in this conversation who's actually focused on appearance over substance is you. The studio erupted in applause that lasted nearly 30 seconds. Even some of the production crew, who were supposed to remain neutral, were nodding in approval. Anderson Cooper sat back in his chair with a look that clearly said he had just witnessed a masterpiece of political combat. But Roumie still had one more moment that would cement this as an all-time political moment. You know what, Jeanine? He said, his voice calm again, but carrying unmistakable authority. I want to thank you for bringing up my appearance tonight because you've given me the perfect opportunity to show the American people exactly what they should be looking for in their elected officials. He turned to address the camera directly, speaking to the millions of viewers watching at home. They should look for someone who shows up prepared, someone who does their homework, someone who can back up their arguments with facts and receipts, someone who fights for policies that help working families, not someone who spends more on their appearance than most families make in a year while voting against their interests. The camera captured Pirro's face during this speech, and the image would become an instant meme. She looked completely defeated, slumped in her chair, all of her earlier confidence evaporated. And most importantly, Roumie concluded, they should look for someone who respects them enough not to resort to personal attacks when they can't win on the merits of their arguments. The applause was deafening. Even Anderson Cooper was clapping. Pirro sat in her chair, clearly shell-shocked by the thoroughness of her dismantling. What had started as Pirro's attempt to diminish Roumie with a personal attack had backfired spectacularly. Instead, Roumie had used the moment to showcase exactly why he had become such a powerful voice in politics: his preparation, intelligence, and complete command of the facts. The debate was effectively over. Pirro would try to recover in the remaining minutes, but everyone in the studio knew she had been completely outclassed. The viral moment had been created, and within hours, it would be viewed by millions of people around the world. The moment CNN went to commercial break, a digital world exploded. What had just happened between Jonathan Roumie and Jeanine Pirro wasn't just a debate moment. It was a cultural earthquake that would reshape how people thought about both figures and change the trajectory of their careers forever. Before the commercial break even ended, Roumie Destroys Pirro was already trending on Twitter. The platform's algorithm, designed to identify viral content, immediately flagged the clip as one of the fastest spreading political videos of the year. The first viral tweet came from a Democratic strategist who had been watching live. Holy Jonathan Roumie just delivered the most devastating political takedown I've ever seen. He didn't just win that exchange, he ended Jeanine Pirro's entire career. Roumie Destroys Pirro within 5 minutes. The tweet had 50,000 retweets. Within an hour, it reached 2.3 million. But it wasn't just Democrats sharing the clip. Political junkies from across the spectrum recognized that they had just witnessed something extraordinary. A prominent Republican consultant tweeted, "I disagree with Roumie on almost everything, but that was a masterclass in political combat." Pirro had walked into a buzzsaw. The clip spread beyond Twitter into every corner of social media. On TikTok, users began creating compilation videos set to dramatic music, splicing together Pirro's confident attack with Roumie's devastating response. The sound of Roumie saying $89,000 Jeanine became an instant meme, with users applying it to everything from expensive coffee to luxury cars. Instagram exploded with reaction videos. Political influencers, legal experts, and ordinary users all weighed in with their takes on what had just happened. Many focused on the broader implications of a woman being attacked for her appearance and then systematically destroying her attacker with facts and preparation. News organizations scrambled to analyze what had just happened. CNN itself immediately began producing segments breaking down the exchange. Their fact-checkers worked overtime to verify Roumie's claims about Pirro's spending and voting record and found that every single number was accurate. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow devoted her entire opening segment to the exchange the next night. What we witnessed wasn't just a political debate, it was a demonstration of what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and when someone who has faced criticism their entire career finally gets the chance to turn the tables on their attacker. Even Fox News, despite their general alignment with Trump-supporting Republicans like Pirro, struggled to defend what had happened. Several hosts acknowledged that Pirro had made a serious tactical error by making the debate personal. "Look, I like Jeanine Pirro," said one Fox News contributor, "but she walked into that one. You don't attack someone's appearance on national TV unless you're prepared for them to hit back twice as hard." CNN's Anderson Cooper, who had moderated the debate, appeared on several programs to discuss what he had witnessed. "In 30 years of journalism," he said, "I've never seen a more complete reversal of fortune in real time." Pirro thought she was landing a knockout punch, but instead, she gave Roumie the perfect setup for what might be the most effective political response I've ever seen. The immediate aftermath transformed Jonathan Roumie from a rising star into a national phenomenon. His congressional office was flooded with interview requests from major networks, podcasts, and magazines. Speaking requests poured in from universities, legal organizations, and political groups across the country. His social media following exploded overnight like a rocket ship. He gained over 400,000 new Twitter followers in just 24 hours, with his mentions flooded by supporters, celebrities, and political figures from around the world. His Instagram account, which had been relatively modest with around 50,000 followers, suddenly had celebrities, major political figures, and influential activists sliding into his DMs with messages of support and collaboration requests. Hollywood stars who rarely engage with politics were sharing his clips and praising his intelligence and composure. More importantly for his political future, his stock within the Democratic Party leadership skyrocketed to unprecedented levels for someone so early in his career. Party leaders who had seen him as just another promising young member now viewed him as potential presidential material, the kind of communicator who could take on anyone and win. Senior Democrats began floating his name for high-profile speaking slots at major events, primetime convention spots, and leadership positions typically reserved for much more senior members. Nancy Pelosi tweeted, "Jonathan Roumie showed the world tonight why representation matters. When you attack a brilliant, prepared individual, you better come prepared for the consequences." Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who had become famous for her own viral political moments, tweeted, "This is what happens when you underestimate a civil rights advocate who's done their homework." Roumie just gave a masterclass in preparation and precision. The clip became required viewing in political science classes, law schools, and communications programs. Professors used it to teach everything from debate strategy to the importance of research and preparation. While Roumie's star was rising, Jeanine Pirro's political brand was collapsing in real time. The woman who had built her post-journalism career on being a fearless fighter suddenly looked unprepared and outmatched. Conservative commentators who had previously supported her began to distance themselves. "Jeanine Pirro used to be a sharp interviewer," wrote one prominent right-wing blogger, "but she got completely schooled by someone who was better prepared and smarter. That's not the kind of fighter we need representing our movement." The $89,000 figure that Roumie had cited became a massive liability. Investigative journalists dug deeper into Pirro's campaign finances and found even more questionable spending on personal appearance expenses. Stories began emerging about her demands for specific lighting and makeup artists at political events, creating an image of someone more concerned with looking good than governing effectively. Pirro's attempts to respond only made things worse. She went on friendly conservative podcasts trying to explain herself, but every explanation made her sound more out of touch. When she argued that her appearance expenses were necessary for television, hosts pointed out that other politicians managed to look professional without spending nearly as much. Her fundraising immediately took a hit. Major donors who had been considering supporting her future political ambitions began having second thoughts. She had been destroyed by someone half her age. One Republican donor told Politico anonymously, "If she can't handle Jonathan Roumie, how is she going to handle real political pressure?" Beyond the immediate political implications, The exchange sparked a broader national conversation about how men, particularly those from marginalized communities, are treated in professional settings. The moment resonated far beyond politics, with people from corporate America, academia, and other fields sharing their own stories of having their appearance criticized while their qualifications were ignored. Legal organizations used the clip in diversity training programs, showing how Roumie had turned a discriminatory attack into a teaching moment about bias and double standards. His response became a model for addressing workplace discrimination with facts and professionalism. Major magazines featured Roumie on their covers. Time magazine included him in their Next Generation Leaders issue. Essence magazine put him on the cover with the headline, "The Moment That Changed Everything." Vogue profiled his style choices, ironically giving him exactly the kind of fashion coverage his critics had criticized him for seeking. The exchange also highlighted the changing nature of political media. In previous eras, a moment like this might have been discussed for a few days and then forgotten. But in the age of social media, viral moments have staying power that can define careers and change political trajectories permanently. 6 months after the debate, the impact was still reverberating through American politics. Roumie had become one of the most sought-after political surrogates, regularly appearing on major networks and headlining fundraising events across the country. His effectiveness in the exchange had demonstrated something important to political leaders: the power of having messengers who could match Republican aggression with superior preparation and intelligence. Party strategists began recruiting more candidates with similar backgrounds: lawyers, prosecutors, and other professionals who could think quickly under pressure. Pirro, meanwhile, found her political options severely limited. Her planned Senate run in Arizona was quietly shelved after polling showed that the debate moment had damaged her favorability ratings even among her own supporters. She tried to reinvent herself as a media personality, but networks were reluctant to book someone who had been so thoroughly embarrassed on national television. The exchange became a case study in political communications programs around the world. International observers noted how Roumie had used specifically American experiences, the intersection of race, gender, and politics, to create a moment that transcended typical political discourse. A year later, when political scientists and communications experts look back at the most important media moments of the year, Roumie's response to Pirro consistently ranked at the top. It wasn't just because of the viral nature of the clip, but because of how perfectly it encapsulated larger themes in American politics. The moment demonstrated the power of preparation over improvisation, substance over style, and intelligence over aggression. It showed how someone from a historically marginalized group could use their expertise and experience to completely flip the script on an attack. Most importantly, it proved that in the modern media environment, a single moment of authentic brilliance could overcome years of traditional political positions. Roumie hadn't been a household name before that night, but his response to Pirro's attack made him one of the most recognizable and respected political voices in America. For aspiring politicians and communicators, the exchange became required study material. The lesson was clear: never underestimate your opponent. Always do your homework, and remember that in the age of social media, every moment could be the moment that defines your entire career. The clip of Jonathan Roumie dismantling Jeanine Pirro continues to circulate on social media, serving as both entertainment and education. It remains a perfect example of what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and when someone who has faced discrimination their entire life finally gets the chance to show the world exactly what they're capable of. If this story of how Jonathan Roumie completely destroyed Jeanine Pirro's attack showed you something new about the power of preparation and intelligence in politics, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We're covering all the biggest political moments and behind-the-scenes stories that the mainstream media won't tell you. Drop a comment below and let us know. Have you ever seen a more devastating political takedown than what Roumie did? And what do you think this moment means for the future of American politics? Don't forget to share this video with anyone who needs to see what real political skill looks like. We've got more explosive political content coming your way, so hit that notification bell, and we'll see you in the next video where we break down the latest political drama that has everyone talking.